Hello, my name is John Brisson, author of Fix Your Gut and Health Coach. Welcome to the Fix Your Gut YouTube channel. Today we're going to discuss how to decrease your stomach pH so that you can improve your digestion within your stomach, which will hopefully lead to you having less GERD, less LPR, which is less reflux or less silent reflux, and you have better digestion and less likely to suffer from gastroparesis and bloating, and belching too as well. So, one of the main supplements that is used for lowering your stomach pH is Betaine HCL, as well as some people will suggest mixing a little bit of apple cider vinegar within water or lemon within your water, because those are very acidic, or putting lemon on your food or putting apple cider vinegar on your food on a way to lower your stomach pH. Yes, those also can be done too as well. But in someone with reflux, where the acid would come in contact with either their larynx, or their throat, or their esophagus, that may be more damaging than if you take Betaine HCL in pill form, which would hopefully bypass that. So our stomach is meant to be an acidic environment. And one of the main reasons why that is because when we ingest food, it's one of the first places that chemical digestion really starts to take place. You produce a little bit of amylase in your saliva, the digestive enzyme, and you do mechanical digestion with mastication when it comes to chewing your food. However, the stomach is where your food's gonna be digested by some of the microbes within the stomach. It's also going to be digested by the stomach acid in and of itself. It's also going to be digested by the enzyme pepsin, which is a protease, which we're going to talk about that later, meaning it digests a protein. So people with an elevated stomach pH, usually that'll lead to improper digestion of food within the stomach. It will also lead to dysbiosis, if not caused by dysbiosis. So it can cause, bloating, improper stomach emptying, dysbiosis, protein fermentation, and malabsorption. So one might ask, how do you get a elevated stomach pH? Well, age can play a factor in that. In the elderly, if you're above 60, your stomach will produce less hydrochloric acid and possibly less pepsinogen, which is the enzyme that turns into pepsin when activated by a low pH like acid. So you may have digestive issues based just off of that. In addition, people with upper gut dysbiosis, like H. pylori, for example, H. pylori is able to produce an enzyme called urease. Now, you produce urea through normal digestion, very small amounts within your stomach when you eat food. The urease breaks down urea into ammonia, which is has a very high pH. So when the ammonia interacts with the stomach acid in the stomach when you're eating your food, or interacts with just your standard stomach pH, it increases it, so that H. pylori can come out of the mucosal barrier and start causing inflammation, reflux, because it's not supposed to be. If you are infected with H. pylori, it's supposed to remain buried in your stomach mucosa, almost inactivated most of the time, so that your immune system doesn't react to it, so it doesn't produce toxins and proliferate and become dysbiotic flora. So yeah, your stomach is supposed to be acidic. However, a dysbiosis of urease producing bacteria can convert ammonia, and it can increase the pH of your stomach. Now, your stomach acid is produced by your stomach to lower the stomach pH, to help limit pathogen dysbiosis and overgrowth, to help digest protein, activate digestive enzymes like pepsin, and from pepsinogen into pepsin, to increase mucin production in the stomach so it can renew the mucosal barrier to prevent against gastritis, and to facilitate proper absorption of B12 later in our gastrointestinal tract because of what is known as the intrinsic factor that is produced with a proper normal stomach pH to later help vitamin B12 be absorbed properly within the small intestine. Now there are, our stomach is not sterile. We found out that many parts of within our body are not sterile. They used to think the bladder was sterile. It's not. They used to think the womb was sterile. It is not. They used to think the stomach is sterile. It's not. They used to think the brain is sterile. In the past couple of years, they found out it's not. Your brain has its own microbiome. Well, the stomach does too. So, you'll have probiotic bacteria that are able to survive acidic environments, like certain species of lactobacillus. They're able to survive. The acid does not kill them off. They're very hardy. They're able to survive in lower pHs. A lot of your pathogenic bacteria have to survive at a much higher pH. That's why H. pylori has to produce the urease to produce ammonia, because it cannot live in a somewhat acidic environment that the stomach has to as well. And I've talked about the reasons why high stomach pH, low stomach acid production can lead to reflux. I'm going to link that video in the show notes. I'm not going to go over it today, but it definitely can cause dysbiosis, and in doing so, that can lead to more bloating, more abdominal pressure, more reflux contents, refluxing into toxins or bacterial toxins, and reducing Akkermansia mucophilia, which is a probiotic bacteria within the upper gut that helps to break down the mucosal barrier properly and handle it. I don't recommend the use of proton pump inhibitors most of the time, unless a person has severe gastritis or perforation in their stomach, because again, proton pump inhibitors do have an antimicrobial effect on the stomach, but they hinder the stomach in that your stomach is supposed to be acidic. The pH during digestion is supposed to be between 1 to 2. Normal resting stomach pH is supposed to be between 2 to 3.5, 2 to 4. So a person with a proton pump inhibitor, it'll be greater. Your stomach might, during digestion, pH might be around 3 to 4. During resting, it might be between 4 to 5. That will lead you more to dysbiosis, lead you to improper digest protein to break down food properly, lead to bloating and poor stomach emptying and reflux, increased abdominal pressure. All of those things will happen eventually from taking a PPI in most people once the cycle is completed and the dysbiosis is able to grow outside of the proton pump inhibitor being antimicrobial, because bacteria have the proton pump outside of them, similar to how our mitochondria have a proton pump, what they need for proper homeostasis. So that's why proton pump inhibitors, many people go after them. For a time they work, but later eventually, the dysbiosis gets worse, and their symptoms gets worse. The reflux gets worse. They have more bloating. They have more belching. That's why I do not recommend them. There are some studies that show that Betaine HCL can help increase the absorption of medications. Some medications that require a low stomach pH, and the reason being is because you'll see many medications like ketoconazole, for example, which is used for yeast, where they say that you should not take it by taking an acid at the same time, because it requires a lower stomach pH, proper stomach acid, for digestion. I usually only recommend the use of Betaine HCL for a short period of time. I don't, because the stomach theoretically could get lazy in producing its own stomach acid. So it can it's like a long-term gastric acid negative feedback loop. So once you stop the Betaine HCL, you may have a little bit of rebound effect in some of your digestive issues, because the body has to catch up in producing stomach acid again. So for some, using bitter herbs like Genesian for a short period of time, or apple cider vinegar or lemon if they can tolerate it, or urban moonshine delimonene apple cider vinegars, as long as you're not having reflux, that might be beneficial. And I have some links in the show notes from the blog that I've written on supplements that could be used instead of Betaine HCL. So usually the protocol for Betaine HCL that I recommend is you start with 2 capsules taken during a meal. If you get severe gastritis or stomach pain, stop immediately. If that happens, your stomach mucosal barrier is a little bit too weak for the for trying to reduce your stomach pH. And if that's the case, most of the time dysbiosis can cause that. So you're probably going to have to tackle the upper gut dysbiosis, which will lead to a weakened digestive barrier. Or if you take NSAIDs like ibuprofen, it'll interfere with prostaglandin production in the stomach, which is crucial for mucosal barrier, which can lead to gastritis. So if you're taking aspirin or ibuprofen, and you're having gastritis or stomach issues, 1, you want to talk to your doctor about maybe trying a different medication that wouldn't cause that, or 2, you don't want to supplement with Betaine HCL or supplement with anything that reduces the stomach pH at that time. Now, if you are having issues, get gastritis or pain, you might want to consume maybe 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda mixed in filtered water or bottled water to kind of buffer that acid so that pain will hopefully go away. But you want to mix it really well, and it's set for 10 minutes, so a lot of the gas comes out, like, and it doesn't really cause any type of bloating or gas just from drinking the Betaine HCL as well. I usually you can increase 1 capsule per day per meal and see if it improves. And I generally don't recommend a person take any more than 12 to 14 capsules of betaine. If you're needing that amount of betaine, generally you're dealing with some dysbiosis that's producing urease that produces ammonia, and so you want to tackle that. If you're needing that much, if your stomach pH is that elevated to bring it down, then you usually need to tackle that first as well. I generally recommend Premier Labs Betaine HCL without pepsin in people with silent reflux, because pepsin will get caught in the esophagus and the larynx, and it will become activated when it gets in contact with acid. So usually I recommend just standard Betaine HCL if all possible during meals, and see if you can tolerate that. If you don't have silent reflux, using regular Betaine HCL with pepsin may be beneficial. And also, pepsin does get inactivated by the sodium bicarbonate that's released into by the pancreas into the duodenum, which is why pepsin doesn't digest the rest of your intestinal tract as a protease, as a digestion of protein. So it does become inactivated through alkalinity. So if you're suffering from dysphagia, you want to make sure that you use Betaine HCL with caution. You don't want it to get stuck in your throat. You want to make sure you swallow all your betaine with a good amount of water, because if it gets stuck in your throat or esophagus and it dissolves, it will burn the lining and cause pill esophagitis, which is extremely painful. You'll probably end up in the hospital with some sort of infection or some sort of chemical burn. So make sure you do not dry swallow your Betaine HCL pills, and that is why you shouldn't also open them up and mix them in water and drinking them that too as well. I generally do not recommend that. Yeah, but I think that covers it about everything about Betaine HCL and natural ways that you can lower your stomach pH. Again, just to briefly cover ways to do that. You can either supplement with Betaine HCL with pepsin or without pepsin. I recommend without pepsin with people with silent reflux. If you don't have any type of reflux, but you're dealing with bloating and gas from the stomach, then you can get away with mixing lemon or lime in your water, which will help lower the pH of your stomach, as well as apple cider vinegar and water, or apple cider vinegar mixed in with your vegetables, or putting lemon and lime on food. All of that may help your reflux as well by lowering your stomach pH, which would make it a more hostile environment for opportunistic bacteria that cannot thrive in a low pH, and it may reduce your bloating and your gastrointestinal issues overall. So hopefully you found this video informative. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe, and I hope you have a great day.